This video is about 5 signs of autism in babies. And know that just because your child has 1 or 2 of these, it doesn't mean they're autistic. If you want to know for sure, please go to a professional. My son Ezra is autistic. Because of the things we know now, we realized there were some pretty obvious signs when he was really little. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you the most important piece of advice that I have ever received that made the biggest difference for me and my son. My pregnancy and the delivery went pretty normal. I had had 3 kids before then, so I totally knew what I was doing, sort of. But I remember when I was in the hospital holding my little newborn, feeling and just knowing that my little baby was really someone special.
Oh, is this in the way? Sorry, Vince. Let me move it a little bit.
The first red flag, Ezra had little to no eye contact. So my 3 older kids, they hit that milestone of looking at me in the eye when they were 3 months old. And then Ezra came along. And at 3 months old, Ezra did not look at me. And I just figured, well, he'll come around. And then he was 4 months old. And then 5 months old, and 6 months old, and still no eye contact. We were worried that his eyes maybe weren't working very well. We'd go to the eye doctor, and he just kept saying, look, there's nothing wrong with your child's eyes. And a really interesting thing, though, is as he got older, like 6 to 9 months old, he would start looking at my face, but he would actually look at my lips. Which really, it makes sense. I mean, if you're gonna look at something, you might as well stare at what's moving, right?
Hello, honey. Hello. Hi.
When I took Ezra to his 1-year well checkup appointment with the doctor, I got that paper, that the nurse always gives you, and you have to check off how your child is doing as far as developmental delays. And I've done this before. This is my 4th child, right? And I started reading everything for Ezra. Does he stack blocks? No. Does he babble? No. Does he say these words? No. And every single question was no. But I didn't really know what to say. I just handed it to the doctor when he came in. He took one look at it and said, all right, let's sign up for some early intervention for Ezra. Number 2 is that Ezra was very content with being alone. Now, don't worry, there's lots of babies and kids, toddlers, even adults that would rather be alone. And this doesn't mean that they're autistic. But Ezra, let me tell you what he would do when he was a baby. He would actually wake up in the middle of the night and he would be happy in his crib. And he wouldn't cry. Now, when he was hungry, or if he needed a diaper change, then he would cry. And so, of course, I'd go get him, and I'd walk into the room and he'd still be crying. And I'd pick him up and he'd still be crying, the same cry. Like, it wouldn't turn into a little whimper. He wouldn't even seem to notice that I had entered the room or I had picked him up. He was still crying, and he wouldn't stop until the bottle was in his mouth, because that's what he wanted. He was hungry. He didn't even seem to try to get my attention when I entered the room. It was almost like I wondered if he'd made the connection that, hey, mom's in the room now. She can help me. She's gonna feed me or change my diaper. When I would reach down the crib and pick him up, he would never reach back for me or look me in the eye. He was content and happy to be alone. He would laugh and he would always be smiling. He's that way now. We're visiting all the national parks in an RV, and you'll see him go down the trail and he'll just be cracking up laughing.
Ezra would be a mile down the trail if Daddy would keep up, huh?
And he is really social, but it's just in his own way. And so other people who don't know him might look at Ezra and they might think that he's not social, but they just don't know he actually interacts with us in really cute, very social ways, but they're in his own ways. And as a baby, he really hadn't developed those skills yet. He didn't know how to socialize, and so it seemed like he just wasn't interested in being social.
Wood, and then we made a house out of the wood. And then we made a bench
When we finally got a doctor appointment to see if Ezra was actually autistic, I felt a sense of relief. We were finally going to get answers. We went in and the doctor, bless her heart, she's like, now he's kind of young, so you're not gonna get a diagnosis today. But I knew better. We weren't in that room for more than 20 minutes before she turned to a doctor who was in residency and pointed at Ezra and said, that is autism. And I was like, well, I guess we'll be getting our diagnosis today. And number 3 is no social smile. Now, Ezra is so happy. He's my happiest kid. I have 5 kids and he's the happiest one. What makes a smile a social smile is when they're smiling back at you, smiling at them. So they're responding to your smile. That's what makes a smile social. And Ezra never did that. To this day, he still doesn't have a social smile, even though most of the time he's smiling way more than anyone else. Number 4 is not babbling. Babies are not expected to talk early. Even if you have a late talker, it doesn't mean they're autistic. One sign that they might be autistic is if they're not even trying to talk. For example, my son Ezra, when he was 6 months old, he actually started babbling. He would say baba, and he wanted a drink, and he would say mama and dada. And he did this for about 3 weeks. I was just so excited. I'm like, yes, he's babbling. This is really great. And then he stopped. And even now, he rarely babbles. Number 5 is the last one, and I'll explain it a little bit. It's not understanding cause and effect. So for example, Ezra would get a new toy, and I remember the new toy would come and he'd be excited about it. He'd want to hold everything in his hands. And I would show him, like, the car goes here and it goes around the track, or the ball goes in here, it goes through and comes out this way. And he just didn't seem to get it. He would just grab the car and grab the ball and then throw him. And then he'd just grab him again and then throw him again. And I would show him again and again and again. This is what you do. This causes this to happen, and then this happens. See? He would also become fixated on certain things in his hands that he would hold, and he'd kind of look at them in kind of unusual angles. And at the time when he was a baby, we didn't really notice that that was even a sign of autism. And when you subscribe and like a video and comment below, then that helps this message get to more people. It tells YouTube that these videos are worth sharing and watching. Now, I want to share with you one of the biggest takeaways and tactical pieces of advice that I've ever received that made the biggest difference for me and my son who's autistic. And that is, make sure to enter their world, especially before you expect them to enter yours. So when Ezra will go next to a wall and start scratching it, then I'll go start scratching the wall too. And he looks over, kind of gives me the side eye. He notices that I have entered his world. And I want him to feel that his mom gets him and understands him. And when he's jumping, then I go right next to him and I jump too. I challenge you to enter your child's world in some way so that they can feel that they are understood. Maybe it's just talking to them about their interests. It'll look different for every person, but entering an autistic person's world could simply be sitting with them and listening to how they experience the world and validating their feelings and being a safe place for them so they don't have to feel alone. Entering their world and truly seeing them and helping them feel seen is the best advice I have ever received to be able to connect with my son Ezra. So blow up the comment section, ask me anything. Let me know how you feel about this story. If you've connected with it, ask any question that you want, even if you think it's too personal, ask it. 4 years later, our next baby, Simon, was diagnosed with mild autism. Our experience with Simon was so different than Ezra's. You can watch Simon's story here.